All right. So in today's webinar, we are very excited to be exploring the Red River Métis community-based monitoring program. What the project is set out to do, what's working well, challenges and lessons learned, and practical insights that should support other communities in doing similar work. So to talk about this project, our special guest today is Phoenix Combe. Phoenix is a policy analyst with the Manitoba Métis Federation's Energy, Infrastructure, and Resource Management Department. A proud Red River Métis woman, born and raised in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Phoenix works to advance Red River Métis governance, data sovereignty, and environmental stewardship across the nation's homeland. She is very committed to ensuring that Red River Métis voices, knowledge, and responsibilities guide land and water decisions now and for future generations. So welcome, Phoenix. And just before I pass the mic on to you, I'll just remind the audience as well to please use the open Q&A link. You can ask a question to Phoenix at any time, and we will, at the end of her presentation, I will monitor a Q&A session using the questions that are in the Q&A poll. So thanks very much, Phoenix, and I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you. I'm just going to start sharing my screen here. Everyone can see the presentation slides, I hope.
Perfect. That looks great.
Awesome. Tanshi, bonjour, hello everyone. Thank you very much, Melissa, for that kind introduction, and thank you very much to the CERNAC team, Marlene and Lucy, for inviting me to speak today and be a part of this webinar series. So I'm very grateful to be here, not only as a representative of the Manitoba Métis Federation, the national government of the River Métis, but on behalf of our citizens, the families, elders, youth, and our grassroots locals who are doing the incredible monitoring work I'll be sharing with you today. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that creating space for Indigenous voices in national climate conversations is not just important, it is essential. Climate change is not something we are preparing for in the future. It is something we are already responding to. With spring fast approaching, we are already thinking about flood risks across our watersheds and basins. In recent years, Manitoba has also faced severe drought and one of the most devastating wildfire seasons in memory, with states of emergency lasting for much of the summer. So I'd just like to highlight these are not isolated events. They are cumulative pressures on lands, waters, infrastructures, and communities. And this is where Indigenous governance and monitoring matters. So Melissa had already provided a bit of an intro on me. So yes, my name is Phoenix Combe. I work for the Energy, Infrastructure, and Resource Management Department with the MMF. I was born and raised here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. My family ties extend to the Interlake, Thompson, and Southeast regions. Some of my earliest and fondest memories are being on Lake Winnipeg with my parents, learning how to drive a boat and fish, which I'm not very good at, but oh, I think, there we go. So I began my career at the MMF as a water resources specialist, which then led me to my position as the Métis Community-Based Climate Monitoring Program, so advancing the program I'll be speaking about today. And now I work as a policy analyst. So up on the screen today, this is sort of what I'll be covering in the webinar. I'll provide a short history on the Red River Métis in Canada, an introduction to the Manitoba Métis Federation, the national government of the Red River Métis, and then the MMF's Métis Community-Based Climate Monitoring Program. The Red River Métis are one of the 3 Indigenous peoples recognized under Section 35 of Canada's Constitution. Our rights are distinct, equal, and enduring. Throughout history, the Red River Métis have been known by many names: Bois Brûlé, the Flower Beadwork people, Louis Riel's people, and Otipemisiwak, which translate to the people who own themselves. We are a nation with a strong and unique identity, born of the Western Plains and the Red River Valley. Our national homeland spans West Central North America, encompassing 5 provinces, 1 territory, and extending into the United States. We are the creators of the Red River Jig, the Métis fiddle music and dance, intricate and world-renowned flower beadwork, and the Red River Cart and York boat, pardon me, all symbols of mobility, trade, and resilience. We are speakers of Michif, our ancestral language, which I like to incorporate in my presentation, so you may see a few Michif terms throughout. The Red River Métis bear a proud history, including the 1816 victory at Frog Plain and leading the Red River Resistance, which resulted in the creation of Manitoba in 1870. This is a history and a culture built on resilience and is carried forward throughout our government today. Long before Canada existed, the Red River Métis governed ourselves according to our own laws, traditions, and democratic systems. Today, the Manitoba Métis Federation maintains that legacy as the democratic and accountable voice of our nation. Since 2014, the MMF has worked to bring all Red River Métis citizens home, regardless of which provincial or national borders divide our homeland. Our jurisdiction is not defined strictly by geographic boundaries, but by our citizens. From the days of the buffalo hunt, our people have been guided by three governance pillars: a president, a council, and an assembly. Today, President David Chartrand and his 22 cabinet ministers continue this work, defending the rights and interests of our people across our homeland. In recent news, the Red River Métis Self-Government Recognition and Implementation Treaty Act, known as Bill C-21, was introduced in the House of Commons on February 12, 2026. This treaty recognizes the Red River Métis' inherent right to self-government and affirms our self-determination, our elections, and the operations of our government. It provides constitutional protection for these rights and replaces the previous 2021 Self-Government Recognition and Implementation Agreement. The programs I will discuss fall under the MMF's Environment and Climate Change portfolio, led by Ministers Marielle Gauthier and Associate Minister David Bowden. Through this portfolio, we recognize the unique role our nation holds today to bridge knowledge across generations, drawing on the wisdom of our elders and the innovation of our youth to protect our environment and secure the prosperity of the Red River Métis for generations to come. Some programs include land-based environmental youth programs such as MELT, or Métis Environmental Leaders of Tomorrow, community restoration and stewardship training through our Stewards of the Homeland program, emergency disaster recovery initiatives, and finally the Métis Community-Based Climate Monitoring Program. These programs are all interconnected. Monitoring informs stewardship, which in turn supports resiliency. So the Métis Community-Based Climate Monitoring Program, or MCBCM, which I'll refer to it as now because it is quite a long title, brings together Western science and Red River Métis traditional knowledge in a way that respects both approaches. It equips citizens across our homeland to become citizen scientists using standardized monitoring protocols alongside culturally grounded practices to observe and record changes in their local environments. This program is open to all Red River Métis citizens, regardless of background or prior scientific experience. It is supported by CERNAC's Indigenous Community-Based Climate Monitoring Funding Program and the Canada Water Agency's Lake Winnipeg Basin Program. At its core, this program is about building local capacity while strengthening sovereignty and stewardship. Since its development, the MCBCM network has expanded to include several monitoring streams. The Water Monitoring Program allows citizens to collect grab samples for laboratory analysis, measuring physical and chemical parameters such as dissolved oxygen, turbidity, water temperature, and pH. In some locations, eDNA samples are also collected. Each participant will record environmental site conditions during each visit. The Wetland Monitoring Program assesses the overall health of a wetland by identifying its type, dominant vegetation, species at risk, plants of traditional importance, while also includes observations of amphibians, benthic invertebrates, and bird species present. Through the Winter Monitoring Program, participants measure local precipitation by recording snow depth and snow weight to determine snow water equivalent. They also document wildlife observations, including tracks, scats, and resident bird species. And finally, the Weatherkeeper program allows citizens to host weather stations on their property. This fills critical climate data gaps, particularly in northern Manitoba, and allows us to share real-time weather data publicly. Our water monitoring program is one of our oldest and most established initiatives, and it continues to grow each year. More citizens are joining, and many return season after season, building on the work they have already started. What makes the ICBCM program so powerful is that monitors choose sites that are meaningful to them, lakes, rivers, and streams that they may use for harvesting, recreational, travel, or cultural practices. During the 2024-2025 open water season, we had 45 sites actively monitored across our homeland. Many of these sites were monitored by families and elders, which highlights the deep community involvement and intergenerational knowledge at the heart of this program. Training materials and monitoring protocols are available online through our website and YouTube channel, so citizens can learn and participate from wherever they are, while still having ongoing support from MMF staff. It was important to us to provide training in multiple formats to ensure accessibility and inclusion. This includes in-person sessions, virtual training, guidebooks, and webinars. All of our monitoring programs use the Survey 123 app, which makes data accessible across our regions and the entire homeland. Importantly, our surveys do not just collect numerical data, they give citizens space to share stories, photos, videos, because for the Red River Métis, traditional knowledge is inseparable from the lands and waters themselves. Western science tells us what is happening, Métis knowledge helps explain what has changed and why. Beyond monitoring, the ICBCM program hosts a variety of citizen science events. These include birding walks, nature hikes, hands-on workshops that allow citizens to practice skills together and learn from one another. These gatherings help build confidence, strengthen relationships, and create mentorship opportunities between youth and elders. We also participate in international initiatives such as the Great Backyard Bird Count, the Christmas Bird Count, and the Monarch Monitoring Blitz. Participation in these initiatives allows our citizens to contribute to global data sets while bringing Red River Métis perspectives into broader environmental conversations. These events build environmental literacy, inspire climate action, and strengthen the connection between our citizens, our homeland, and the global community of environmental stewards. The ICBCM program began for many reasons, but I'll highlight three main ones. First, our citizens were observing change. Elders were telling us that ice is forming later, breaking up earlier, fish populations were shifting, water levels were less predictable, and harvesting patterns were changing. We needed a structured way to document what our people were already witnessing. Second, there was a significant data gap across our homeland. Many northern and rural regions lacked consistent environmental monitoring, yet decisions about development, infrastructure, watershed management, and emergency response were still being made. We needed to advocate effectively and govern responsibly, which required credible, localized data. Finally, self-government requires evidence-based decision-making. Monitoring strengthens environmental policy development, emergency preparedness, climate adaptation planning, and advocacy for protected and conserved areas. So the program began as both a sovereignty initiative and a stewardship initiative. One thing we heard loud and clear from our citizens is that they wanted to know how their data was being used and how to see the results of their work. This led to the development of the pilot ICBCM report card and water quality dashboard. Starting in 2025-2026 open water season, citizen scientists will start to receive site-specific reports like the one on the screen here in the left. MMF leadership will receive regional reports, and the internal dashboard, which is on the right here, will provide MMF staff with real-time data to support risk assessment and early warning. We heard that feedback clearly, and if successful, this model will be expanded across all monitoring streams so that summaries, trends, and interpretations can be shared consistently with our citizens. In terms of how we use the data collected through ICBCM, it supports a number of things, including policy and advocacy, including the watershed planning, natural resource management, and climate adaptation strategies, emergency preparedness through real-time monitoring and risk awareness, and research partnerships while maintaining MMF leadership and oversight. I would like to emphasize that data sharing occurs through formal agreements that define purpose, scope, and limitations. Ownership always remains with the MMF. Protecting sensitive data builds trust and ensures long-term participation in our programs. So while some data is public, such as the weather station outputs, other data is sensitive, particularly information related to harvesting sites or culturally important areas to our citizens. Like any program or service, we are always trying to improve, expand, and adapt to the needs of our citizens and our government. This lends itself to ongoing challenges, including capacity and resourcing constraints, harmonizing data across jurisdictions, balancing transparency with the protection of sensitive information. But looking ahead, there are strong opportunities to strengthen Indigenous participation in environmental monitoring, coordinate efforts across borders, and build respectful, long-term partnerships that recognize Indigenous governance and data sovereignty. I like to think these challenges are not barriers, but rather opportunities for thoughtful collaboration. To wrap up, I want to highlight that this program shows Indigenous leadership in water, lands, and climate isn't just a concept, it is happening on the ground, led by our citizens and guided by our government. Thank you so much for giving me the time to share this Red River Métis-led program and initiative with you today, and I'd be happy to answer any Q&A questions. And I also have my contact information on the screen should you like to contact after this. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Marcy. That was wonderful, Phoenix, and I learned a ton. And there are a couple questions in the Q&A already, and I would just encourage webinar attendees to go ahead and open up your Q&A, add to the questions. The first question that we have, it can be interpreted, I think, as for the ICBCM team. And for that question, would love, I know it was an anonymous person who put it in. The question was, there seems to be a void of projects in Southern Alberta. What are some supports or recommendations to increase participation in areas of underrepresentation? And that is where the resource page of the toolkit will come in really, really handy. You can choose resources that are based on geography, and you can also link to other projects in that area. And we'll go to the CERNAC team after the rest of the Q&A, but it actually also ties. Oh, do you want to go ahead, actually, Marlene? You see you've got your camera on. You had another comment.
No, whatever you think's best, Melissa.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, no, just to thanks and thank you so much, Phoenix, for that awesome presentation. Um, just a couple of points. I'm not sure if the question was kind of a reaction to the map that you screen shared, Melissa.
Okay.
But just to note that it's not a comprehensive, perhaps, map of all the breadth of work that's going on across the country. It's kind of the folks that had let us know about their project, or we were somehow involved in the project and provided permission for those to be shown. So there's probably a lot more going on than what's there, but we always welcome new projects to be added to that page as well. So if folks in Southern Alberta are doing work and would want to highlight that, there is a way of just letting us know so we can include it in the map. As Melissa noted, there's a lot of resources on the website related to starting up a new project, like how to do community engagement or some thoughts around that, training youth, and seeking out funding. So maybe I'll provide a little link in the Q&A on where you can find at least the funding page of the toolkit, which is a good start. But I also thought Phoenix might have some ideas as well about the question of increasing participation, or could speak a little bit briefly around how did you do engagement and get folks interested and on board with your project.
Awesome. Thanks, Marlene.
Yeah, thanks, Marlene, for answering that first part of the question. And yeah, happy to share a bit more information on how we get citizens involved. So through the MMF, we do a lot of engagement through our department. whether it's a consultation or through the regional meetings that we host at the end of the summer before the AGA as well. So we have many opportunities where we actually connect with our citizens at the local level as well as at these larger regional events. So it provides us an opportunity to recruit folks at those events, as well as we have our social media team who works very hard to put all of our monitoring programs and our events on the MMF social media so that we can reach a wider audience than we usually do in person. And then finally, yeah, we work with the regional offices, sharing, events or programs with them so that they can distribute it amongst the locals, who then can distribute it to the citizens within those locals. So I would say there's multiple different ways that we do it, but usually I find that the best recruitment happens during our community meetings, and it's great to meet the people as well that will be doing the monitoring for us, and sort of get to hear from them why it's important and why they chose that area as well.
That's great. Thanks for that. The next question that has a couple votes on it as well is, how are health teams, departments, or services involved, if at all, in using the monitoring data or processes?
Yeah, that's a great question. So currently the MMF is working towards a data sovereignty strategy. I think it's still a couple years out, but that would work to have internal departments have access to the best available data for our citizens. So whether that's census data or, this monitoring data. So we're still working on a way to share that. Again, obviously there is that component of working with sensitive information, and we want to make sure that the right people are accessing it and are using it appropriately. So I would say there isn't a defined way of doing it right now, but I know that we do always encourage collaboration within departments, and we are trying to work with whatever departments within the MMF to provide them with information they need should they ask for it. But yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
It's really helpful. And this, we knew it would be, but is such a popular topic, data. So the next two questions are on the same topic. The first one is that you touched upon weather station data being less sensitive than harvesting data. Some Indigenous groups consider data gathered through weather station as traditional knowledge data, and wondering if there's a Métis specific stance on that.
Yeah, I would say that for us, Red River Métis traditional knowledge comes in the form of, again, the videos, the photos, the stories, and specifically through our traditional knowledge interview process. So that will take an individual sort of across their entire life, and the observations and changes that they've seen. So it's a pretty lengthy interview that they'll do. Whereas for something like the weather station data, which is a partnership with the University of Manitoba, it only collects like real-time weather data, as in like wind, air temperature, um, like very Western science sort of forward indicators. Whereas when we do our traditional knowledge interviews and we're using more Indigenous indicators, that would be sort of our distinction between the two. So I can certainly appreciate that some folks would consider that traditional knowledge, and I mean it can be a personal perspective. So if there was a citizen that had concern with sharing with that data, we would work with them. However, when they do sign up for the program, we do make them aware that this would be put on the dashboard on our website, so that citizens in your local have access to real-time climate data in areas maybe where there's a gap for the ECC network, or the specifically in Manitoba there's a lot of agriculture weather stations too, but they tend to be mostly in southern Manitoba. So that was kind of also the push for that program and initiative as well. So
Great, thanks for that. We have Robert asking, are there M&M data sharing agreements with municipalities or universities?
yeah, so as of right now, our data sharing agreements tend to be with university or federal agencies, but we are always happy and looking to collaborate and build on our partnerships with municipalities, NGOs, other obviously Indigenous nations as well. So it would just be, yeah, a conversation of what we're willing, what the limitations are, the scope and the boundaries of the data that we're wanting to share. Because no data sharing agreement looks the same. So it would depend on the information and the project. So yeah.
Fantastic. And then I'm not sure if you can see the questions open. I just want to thank Megan for your very comprehensive question. It's one of my very favorite elder quotes is that relationships are built over 100 cups of tea. And this feels like it could be a whole cup of tea. And I want to thank you for also sharing resources because this is what this is all about is the networking. So Megan says, thanks so much for this great presentation. This question may be a bit too broad for climate monitoring specifically, but she would love to hear about how you balance the protection of community-specific data with broader information coalition needs. So does all data come directly to you? The initiatives that her organization might be involved in will include collating data across numerous nations. So we are needing to balance coalition with community nation ownership. Are there ways or tools you have come across that might be helpful? And then you went on, Megan, to share a whole list of resources that you found, which is really helpful for everybody on the line. Phoenix, any comment on that question?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I mean, usually most of our partnerships have been sort of bilateral. So there's only two sort of groups and interests that we're trying to work towards and sharing information bilaterally in that sense. So unfortunately, I don't have an example of where there's multiple different partners with multiple different priorities and information coming in multiple different streams that you need to sort of filter and determine which should be protected, whereas some can be shared openly. But I do know that it is a big thing, kind of taking over Canada right now, right, is data transparency and accessibility. And I know for us, our priority is that Red River Métis knowledge is owned by the MMF and that we have the control if and when that's shared. And I do know that our citizens are hoping or are looking to share their traditional knowledge, but they just want to make sure that it's being used in a respectful way. And that's how we approach it with data sharing agreements to ensure that, again, the scope, the limitation, the boundaries of what they can use it for. And then two, that they're citing, that it is Red River Métis knowledge and they're using it in a respectful way and taking it in the right context. So yeah, that's an interesting situation. And unfortunately, I wish I had more insight on it, but I imagine as, more protected and conserved areas come forward across Canada, there'll be a lot of different nations coming forward to work together, and it'll be something we'll have to work on together. So
Yeah, that's great. It sounds like you're well on your way, Megan, as well. Excellent. We have Mara next, who says, also thanks for the great presentation and wondering if you could speak a little bit more about the Weatherkeeper program.
yeah, absolutely. So again, the Weatherkeeper program is a partnership with the Center of Earth and Observation Science at the University of Manitoba. So this partnership was sort of born out of the MMF was wanting to, again, fill critical data gaps within northern rural Manitoba for the weather station network up there, but didn't necessarily have the expertise and how to do that. So we put in a proposal application with the University of Manitoba to get funding so that the MMF could purchase the weather stations and lead the program internally, but would have the University of Manitoba support in terms of like translating that data, actually putting it out on a data dashboard, because at that point we didn't have the capacity to take the data from the weather stations, do all that they do, translate it, put it onto a nice little dashboard that is easily accessible and easy to understand as well. And you're not just looking at bars and graphs and all that and spreadsheets. So it really is a great partnership that we've built with them, and we are looking to expand it. We have a few more weather stations that were purchased, but again, just back to those challenges, there's always capacity restraints, and yeah, we're working on getting some more staff to help out with this project, and also it's yeah, it's a great way to have citizens involved in the program directly because they are the ones housing that weather station and responsible sort of for the daily maintenance. And yeah, making sure everything is running smoothly on their end. So yeah.
Awesome. Can you go into a little bit more detail about the journey of a citizen scientist? So how might they find out about the program? How are they onboarded? How are you getting the word out to community that this is even a possibility for someone to participate?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a number of ways we engage our citizens, like I said, through those local regional meetings, through social media. So we have a contact person. Um, you can contact myself if you are a River Métis citizen and you're interested. But yeah, so there's a contact that you could reach out to receive an application form, and from there we'll onboard you. We'll provide you with all the available programming that we have going in the current season. So obviously winter monitoring has a season. Wetland water monitoring has its own season. So depending on the time of year, there might be a number of different opportunities for you. We always encourage folks to participate in all of them, but again, being mindful that a lot of these folks are doing this in their free time. So we want to work with them on making sure that they have the capacity and the support and the confidence to go out and do this work themselves. I also, I'll get applications of families that want to do it together with their kids as an activity or friends that want to do it together. So it is great. I see a lot of community involvement in that sense and that intergenerational sort of involvement, which is, it's very cool to see. So from there, if say they choose program A, B, and C, we would provide them next with the training opportunities. So like I said, there's the YouTube videos, there's the guidebooks, and then we try to do for each of the programs in the beginning of the season, a training event, an in-person training event that they can attend so that they can also get those practical skills. And I find with the YouTube videos, they are quite helpful when someone is actually out in the field and they just need a little bit of a refresher as well. They can rewatch that at their own leisure because they are quite in depth and they show them like step by step how to do it. And then again, there's the Survey 123 app that they'll use. So they don't need to bring their paper with them. They just need a cell phone. If they don't have a cell phone, they can also just note their observations or the information on a piece of paper and input it at a later date or time. Again, we are quite mindful that there's a number of different experience levels coming into this program. We try to make it as beginner friendly as possible. So I've even had situations where they just email me their information and I input their surveys for them. So yeah, we try to work with them on what works best for them and how to get the most involvement and retention and recruitment into the program. But yeah, and from there, we have their contact information so we can also offer them other events if they want to build sort of their skills. So one thing we had done last year, and I'll just end this point quickly because I don't want to take up more time if there's more questions, but for the winter monitoring program, we have a component of it that's monitoring resident bird species. And one thing we had heard was it was difficult for folks to identify the birds by their sound. They weren't seeing them, but they were hearing them. So with that, we provided a course, a workshop where folks could come to Fort White Alive and they did like a sound ID training. So they got to hear a ton of different bird calls and we worked with them on, yeah, I guess developing that skill or expanding that skill. So yeah, we always love hearing back from citizens on how they feel about the programs and the events so that we can continue to offer things that that they want to use and go to. So yeah.
Awesome. I think we have time for one more question. And actually, we'll still say one and a half. There's a technical question about where the weather stations are purchased, if you happen to know the answer to that, or that could be an email in the background. And then I'll just skip to the other one as well, in case you want to answer both. So, is there possibly a desire for collaboration with other groups or organizations that aren't directly climate change focused, but related to climate change preparedness or resilience? And if so, best method to reach out about this?
Yeah, that's a great question. And sort of like I had mentioned in like my first slide or one of my first few slides is, yeah, under the environment and climate change portfolio, emergency disaster recovery is a huge thing within our mandate. So we're always looking to better prepare ourselves for the changes of climate change and as well as how we can best adapt to them. So I would say the MMF is always looking to collaborate on climate change related projects and or partnerships. So certainly reach out. Again, my contact information is there. I might not be the best person to reach out for, but I can certainly pass you along to the correct person within our department. And to the point of the weather stations, there's a number of different weather stations that you can purchase. It really depends on your budget. Ours is the Hoskins one, and we chose that because of the sensors being plug and play. So it was the most user-friendly option available, but we are actually looking at other options. So if you or yourself uses weather stations in your own climate monitoring projects, I'd love to, yeah, connect on that and sort of hear your thoughts on your equipment and if there's a better option out there. So yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. Marcy, thank you so much for your time today.